Well, joining us for our Emmy Contenders Production Design panel is Nora Mendis from Couples Therapy. Nora, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this show is so interesting from a production design perspective because it's a docu-series and it follows real couples in therapy with a real psychiatrist. But you had to build her office from scratch. So can you go into how you got involved and like what that process entailed?
Sure. Yeah. So honestly, the most interesting part about this was that they were shooting real couples doing real hour-long therapy sessions, but they didn't want any cameras in the room at all. So when I was first approached about the show, the idea was like, well, maybe we would do two-way glass or mirrors or something. And like the initial idea was something that looked like an interrogation room and was awful. And so, the idea was like how to make something that looks and feels like a naturalistic therapist's office, but where you could have cameras able to look in and let the subjects feel comfortable in the space. And, the subjects knew that they were being filmed, they're mic'd up outside, but from the moment that they walk in off the street, we wanted to build a space that did not feel like a set. And so from the street, they walk through a hallway that is never seen in the show that matches the main space. And then there's a waiting room and her therapist's office. And then along every wall of the therapist's office and the waiting room are 10-foot long pieces of two-way glass that are angled at 45-degree angles so that the cameras could see in, but then essentially it reflects up what's beneath. And so it looks like it's an intentional blank shelf. And it just required a lot of, sort of gymnastics to figure that out. And, because as a therapist's office, it looks nice, but it's nothing particularly mind-bending. It looks like a real therapist's office, but because of being able to have this hour-long therapy session without having cameras in the room, it turned into a giant puzzle, which was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. So in the actual office, where did you hide like all the cameras?
So basically, everywhere where you see, everywhere where there's an empty shelf is it's a 10 or 11-foot piece of two-way glass. And so basically on every wall, there's these long, intentional looking sort of mid-century style blank shelves that have glass in them, but it's not really visible, definitely not visible, I think, in the show, and not really visible even when you're in the room. And then additionally, there's mirrors that are actually placed, near the door or near, the entrances and exits that are also two-way glass, but that are meant to be look like mirrors. And there's also more sort of camera spaces in other locations. And but the cameras were behind the scenes on long sliders in big black tents, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Did any of the patients figure out where the cameras were, or were they just like completely focused on their sessions? Like it just kind of,
the magical thing about couples therapy is that once you're in the room, you're talking about yourself and your problems. You're not really looking for for the magic of the set. And I think your sort of average TV or movie watcher just doesn't know what is required to make a film or a TV show. So they don't know that there's huge cameras with operators and the whole apparatus that is behind the scenes. Unless you're an actor, like you would never really see that. And so I think they maybe thought that there were surveillance cameras around, or I don't know what they thought, honestly, but nobody ever went around looking for where the cameras are.
Well, in the finale, like one of the guys, he like when his partner's like talking, like he's like, just like touching stuff on the shelves, and I was like, is he looking for a camera or is he just like walking around because he just doesn't want to listen to her right now?
Right. Yeah. If you weren't really looking, it's not hidden. It's there. You could tap on the glass. It's obviously there. And but I think the point in the design that we were really discussing was how to make it so they knew they were being filmed, but as soon as they get going in the session, they just sort of forget about it. And it's just sort of a surreal thing to watch it because it's happening in real time. And yet the shots that are happening, you have one shot where they should be looking directly at another camera, but because of the way the set is built, you don't see the other the other camera at all. And it's all happening in real time.
Yeah. Well, as far as the design of the office itself, did you talk to Orna at all about like what she wanted in there, or how did you go about just, designing the space?
Yeah, yeah. I spoke to Orna ahead of time, and I visited her actual office in Soho and sort of got a sense of her style. She gave me a very long list of books that she would definitely not have in her office and that she would have in her actual office. And, there's tons of books in space. And she saw the space before we started filming. And she knew everything that was going on. She saw the behind the scenes and,
Right.
and had a sense of the smoke and mirrors. And, yeah, we talked a bit, but it doesn't look like her actual office. It's not like a recreation of her real space.
Mm-hmm. It is like, now I'm glad to know like the cameras were behind the shelves, because like behind the patients it's basically empty shelves, but behind her it's like all those books.
Right,
Like,
but actually a long empty shelf behind her as well. And
yeah.
So it's just the higher and the lower ones are filled with books.
Mm-hmm. There's like a wide shot in one of the episodes of when she's just like in the office by herself, and you can see, I guess, what are supposed to be windows like above, so it looks like the office is like a basement office basically. So is that intentional, so you just don't have to think about like reflection in a mirror and everything?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what things were actually on location? Like we see her go to Virginia, her advisor's office.
Right.
So that her
that is her main office, and
okay.
everything else is on location.
Mm-hmm.
So the main therapist office, which always, there are 3 directors, and they always wanted the therapy session to be the meat of the show. It wasn't like that would be little sound bites. It was more like they wanted the therapy session to be front and center. You wanted to be able to stay with it in real time. And so we spent a lot of time in her office, and they actually didn't start shooting the more verite location stuff until about 2 months into shooting. So it was more like a changing course a little bit in what exactly they wanted to see. But it was always only her therapist office was the centerpiece.
Mm-hmm. Well, seeing that it is like the main centerpiece of the show, and so much of the action takes place there, like it's basically like a static set. You don't really change too much from session to session or episode to episode. So do you keep that in mind when you're designing the set?
Exactly. Yeah, we had a list of things that were supposed to change and move around in between sessions, but it was all really little stuff, And so it was like her papers on her desk. It was, the pillows, the water, and the picture, and things like that. But honestly, in reality, like a therapist's office is not something that would change that much, and it's not like she would move around her furniture between sessions. And so we just sort of kept that in mind, and like there's a little checklist of things to make sure looked like they had changed in between sessions, but it was a short list. It wasn't much.
Yeah, you could just put like a coffee cup on like the table, like one episode. Yeah.
Exactly.
In the pilot, like we see in the hallway of the couples waiting, like they're trying to like decipher a painting on the wall. Like they're like, is that an axe or like a bird or whatever? So where did you find that painting?
I mean, our scenic painted it.
So it wasn't like some famous painting that you found somewhere.
We made a few versions and went through it. We had a lot of references, and I actually love that they kept that in the way everybody's interpreting that painting. But it was very much like me and her talking through what the painting should look like, and then she made a few options and we picked one.
That's hilarious. Do any of the patients know that like you guys just painted it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I honestly think that they thought it was like real, and which that's the magic of movies, and even the magic of sort of documentary filmmaking in some ways that is a little slicker, because the 3 directors all come from a documentary background, and they actually had never worked with a production designer before, which was an interesting process, and because they're used to being able to just take what is and maybe move things around a little bit to make it look nicer, make the frame nicer. But a built set was something that they had no experience with. And so it was like a teaching in that way, but to create an environment that was really important for what they wanted to make, And it was like allowing the people to reveal things about themselves in a space that was comfortable with no cameras around. Because documentary is sort of inherently performative. There's no way around it. But it's nice to not see the apparatus all around you.
Definitely. Well, the show's been renewed for a second season. So are you going to change anything up in The Office?
Not really. Honestly, it's like pretty similar. Again, it's like, you know, we talked to Orna and she doesn't change major things in between. And so it's like, it's honestly very similar. And some things are different and there were some technical tweaks, but it's mostly behind the scenes stuff to make things like a little more enjoyable for the camera operators and for sound. And but in terms of the actual look of what you see, it's more or less the same.
You guys just need to paint a new painting for the hallway.
Right.
Every season, just a new painting.
Exactly, a little Easter egg.
Well, Nora, it's great speaking with you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you back here in a little bit.